Hello. I got some cool stuff. Some cool stuff. So we're gonna play some music by MBB. I thought it would be kind of fun. It sounded kind of fun. Sorry if it's not your cup of tea. Okay, let's get going. I got some really. Okay. So many thoughts. I was watching one of my videos because I saw someone watched it, or at least started watching it, and I was like, what was that one about again? I was watching the key to the universe, 369. And I didn't remember what it was about, and it's about. So far, I didn't finish because I was just having like crazy thoughts. And I was like, "Whoa, dude! Like this, I'm putting pieces together." And it was just like, I think I know what happened, kind of, in a way that's like way more precise to something like this. Okay. So the video was about how this area of the ocean floor is younger than anticipated and isn't compatible with the current interpretation of the age of the ocean floor. It's anomalous. And then interestingly, this is in something I noticed. This is in the range expected. The Manihiki Plateau, which was once together with the Ontong Java Plateau, which all three, the Hikurangi Plateau, I'm pretty sure this is Manihiki, but I might have twisted them. But those three were once together as a single oceanic plateau. And then over here, this formed generally of the similar materials, and seems to have a close affinity from the papers that I was coming across when I was rewatching it. I was like, certain details were like, I missed that then, I'm gonna miss things now, I'm probably gonna I totally forgot about it because it was such a, I don't even know, when was that? November? I mean, 4 months ago, 3 months ago, 3.5. Like, I'm on such a different wavelength of thought. Like, I've been writing my book about shallograms. Like, talking about other things, specifically over here a lot, and over here, and I'm just not, and over here, I just haven't been thinking about this. I totally forgot about these details, but now that I'm seeing them again, I was like, whoa, dude, holy shit. Oh my, I keep seeing things that are just like, oh my god. I hope I can document them because they're running through my head in like a really hard to grab and like keep it. So I really want to like say what I'm thinking about. So I pulled up this image here. Watch over here, make sure. Maybe I'll be a little smaller so we can really see details. Okay. It says the separation of continents, and I generally just did this at some point because I was like, they mirror each other, and I know this point over here was very closely related to this point because of the magnetic anomaly and my interpretation. So like, hopefully you're acquainted the concepts I've proposed and like for building on top of for a while, where this structure here has a field around it. It's so hard to just like not go back to at least far enough back to make sense. So over here is what I have dubbed, although I'm not sure how accurate the actual terminology is to the like what will end up being the reality of exactly what this location is, but I've dubbed it and I'm pretty sure it generally makes sense. The mantle puncture hole, where current flowed out of from the mantle and went out in all directions underneath the crust when all of the continental land masses were conjoined at around 540 million years radiometric dating. A current upwell below the crust right at this location and fanned out in all directions underneath the crust and ultimately produced what is the magnetic anomaly map of the Earth by current flows. So like for instance, there are current flows here that can be traced that do things like bend at this location and compact material by other pressures from the mantle puncture hole pushing upward, interacting with this other flow. They build a wall between them. So there's all these details that are in the magnetic anomaly map where currents are flowing, and one of the things going on is this current from the mantle puncture hole goes westward through basically the blue. Blue is low intensity magnetic anomaly, which is basically where current flowed. It's a region of low density, not just low intensity, but low density, where then the current that was flowing from the mantle puncture hole flowed especially down as this structure took form. Initially, it was much more uniform, so the process didn't really begin to create these types of structures, I interpret, until they started to, the flow went around the Earth and started to interact with itself and then started to collide, and then that built up under pressures below the crust, which then led to actually rupturing the crust apart by these under pressures of undercurrents that are all tied to the attack of ancient Dwarka using a vortex weapon that punctured the mantle in Pakistan. So ancient Dwarka, as written of in Hindu scripture, was right here. As I at some point what like kicked this whole analysis off really was when I noticed this structure, at least in terms of the study of the Earth. Before seeing this structure, my interpretation was very much based in physics, and I felt the Earth had expanded because the pieces just fit together, and it's hard to just ignore that data because the reason it's being ignored is a lack of a mechanism. So I felt, well, I believe I found a mechanism in my physics research, and essentially just began to see that the Earth expanded as the more likely between plate tectonics, Earth expansion, and really any idea I've ever heard proposed. I mean, it seems from that step, that's where I was it seems that way. But then I began to incorporate it with the global flood, which was caused, as I interpret it, by what is written of in Hindu scripture as the attack of Dwarka, which was at this location, which generally fits its like geological description, where there were I don't know, it's literally, Dwarka means gateway city or gateway to heaven, where there is a gateway to an area that is said to have been built on 6 pillars 2 on the right, 4 on the left. I mean, especially if the Earth has shifted around, it may even be more like have been more like this in terms of the angle north to south positioning of it. I don't even know if that's actually written of in. I never could find that exact description. I just found it interesting that it matched. But it is a gateway. It's large enough. It's at a depth that generally coincides with when the what the ocean floor is thought to have been like in terms of sea level. I mean, not ocean floor. The sea level is thought to have been like at the like younger Trias kind of time frame. So it looked kind of like it made sense. And I began to inspect it from that angle, and like it just fits. And I found a lot of things, which included me realizing that the actual magnetic anomaly map shows where this. Like, I basically looked at this and was like, well, what if this is a location where currents are flowing from? Because let's just say Dwarka was attacked by a vortex weapon and it punctured the mantle and led to an upwelling from the mantle at that location specifically, then maybe it would create some kind of unique structure that is only visible at that location. This thing is unlike anything else on Earth in terms of there's no other magnetic anomalies that spiral in, and even the shapes around it, and this bend down here, which by the way, I just noticed this yesterday or recently. I think I noticed it in one of the videos and I came back to it recently, and I was just, this is what, interestingly, let's go ahead. I drew what I see is generally an ammonite-like shape. I'm not saying it's like identical in shape and needs to have every contour precise, but it's more like subtly formed, where there's a like nucleus around here, a general trend over here that can be continued this way or this way. I didn't even know which would make more sense. So like I'd be almost like making it go over this way, which maybe is more accurate, but it looks more like this was more continuous. Then over here, a boundary around it, with like gaps that I drew as dots, but generally a boundary. And then even a chamber here, which I didn't point out. But maybe there's another chamber kind of thing going around it. More ammonite-like that actually is happening. Like that's maybe a chamber there. But then this dot, I couldn't really do this well. This dot, I didn't realize this until like 2 days ago, or whenever, yeah, yesterday, whatever, 2 nights ago, I guess. This dot is physically abutting this boundary. So if we go like this, go up here to this boundary, which is a road, hilarious. What? Is this a road? Because it's like a probably optimal pathing around things generally. I don't know what exactly they're pathing around in this area. Maybe the optimal geology that can support a road or something. That's crazy. It's literally a road there. It's not a road here, though. Like it's an actual boundary. This is an actual boundary. This color is actually there. So that's probably realistically there in some way that they're using it as a road. Like even over here, there's no road following that exact path that we can see this like darker area. There's like a boundary that kind of continues. Whoa. Oh my god. So, but the point is, before I get off track, right here is 25 degrees and then 25.66 degrees north and 70.112 degrees east. So 25.66, 70.12. So if I go like right there, 25.76, 70.33. So if I go to 66, just out of curiosity, is there 70.11. Oops. What was it? 25.5. 0.66. Okay. It's about there. So it's pretty much at this boundary that's extending. And then this thing, if we go to like this point, let's find one that's a better number so I don't have to. 69. Heyo. Let's find one that's a better number. 69, 24 points. Let's say 4. Or wait, yeah. 24.4. 69 and 24.4. So we're going the other way. 69. 24.4. Oh yeah, this is 69. 24.4 is like 24.4. 69 is here. I guess maybe not exactly there, but I picked a number that was optimal just to find. So let's say we go here, or arguably it extends over here, maybe even extends further, it's hard to say, but like here is generally where this boundary is. It's like a far point. So that one is 69 degrees east, 24.33 north, 24.33 right there. Damn. So this structure, even though it's very obvious here, is hidden here in this area. It's down here, goes around, like pretty much like being this boundary where it does this thing, and then wraps around like this way, like around here, and goes up to be at like reach to the very edge of its structure to where this is, and go back down and fit in this like nook, this chamber. Whoa. It's literally in the chamber. Oh my god. And let's just look here for, because we're not even done like seeing the like across the two. This one 24.2, so 24.33, 70.43. So maybe I'll get an easier number for east. 70.66, 24.33. 74.66, 24.33. Okay. Four, 33, 76, here. So generally where this dot is, this like ring of dots, this dot here, is here. Let's find its center. Its center. 70, 45, 24, like 24. 70, 45, 24, 24. Right there. So it's actually probably this whole thing. Oh my god. Oh my god, it makes me think of a chakra. That's like... I guess I could maybe just look at chalograms. I don't know how... I tend not to take pictures from that angle, is why I didn't go that way. Like a chakra, but then like a larger structure where it's off center. So maybe the chakra is probably somewhere in here, maybe in here. But like, so there's a larger structure, like generally this. But where it's more so like just a chakra to the side with a general structure here that maybe has chambers. Chamber, oh my god. It even has a path that goes like that. So maybe this is behaving like a ammonite, which would then point to maybe this ammonite type structure has an ammonite, maybe another ammonite, maybe another ammonite, maybe having ammonites in some of the chambers, and then like a void here. Interestingly, like a nucleus, or a neutron and a proton, neutron, neutron, proton, proton, neutron. Neutron, proton, proton, neutron. I don't know if it continues there. Maybe getting smaller, like a different ring. Oh my god. Being a fractal atom that actually is like, here's how the protons and neutrons like to arrange. Where there's a neutron, or a neutron, neutron, proton, proton pattern. Oh my god. In a spiral in that then leads to an overall structure that's maybe pretty basic. Or maybe something changes in the way they structure themselves as they approach like an inner ring, where it becomes more like neutron, 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 proton, like a path, void, proton, where they're still doing pairs optimally. Like maybe it doesn't always do that because atoms don't always do that. But notice this structure really has like a faint ring that goes out here, almost like an ammonite shell that has, again, the structure not just going in here, but going out along it here. We even can see like a faint ring to some boundary where maybe the like radioactive aspects of atoms start to become more apparent. I don't know if this is able to be extrapolated that far from just one structure without seeing more, but it looks like something like that's going on, and it's on the side of this ammonite, which in this chamber though, which I guess really extends down further. Oh my god, to have like a straight boundary maybe right there, but then has a chamber path like there. That also this odd. Or maybe some other shape. But the chamber, like a square, like a triangle, I guess. Maybe extend that to like there. Maybe redo it because it. So I can do it like that, I guess. Maybe there. Also, probably having like another boundary. But then it's almost like a ramp. This with this here is very reminiscent of a Sean Wilsey video that I talked about in my Anza Borrego video not too long ago. It's another Sean Wilsey video that I just noticed. Like there's a ring pattern around, if we go to this one, around here. Generally there, that goes around and has a boundary. And then there's a circle, like a nucleus to the circle. And then over here, though, is another like nucleus-like thing that has a boundary here that's smaller, that generally shares the same boundary over here. So there's a inner structure and an outer structure with different nuclei adjacent at a higher energy level. Notice there's even this flat thing that kind of suggests like a boundary that goes like this and spirals in. Maybe in to here and like there and there. Oh my god. It's like how this structure gets formed by a spiral like this that goes all the way in to ultimately end up here. Also, like, has within it, at its center, a center, but creates another unit below it, so maybe like a larger spiral. Like, say, this boundary here would have some center, maybe that is hard to see. Maybe over here there's another boundary that maybe has a center like here. That maybe take like almost like a mathematical pattern. Maybe there is another center at some point in some like spiraling structure. See this video, I guess I'll try to remember to link this Twitter post. There's the address if I don't, so you can then see which video. I think that's the title if you don't just Google it or YouTube search. But there's that there with boundaries out there. I just thought it was applicable as we passed by, but what I was talking about before was this. Above this, let's go to this video real quick. Oh my god, it's still going. I don't have any way to skip it. I usually hit share in bed, but his videos do not allow that for some reason. embed features off. So it has this ramping structure here that then has this like wedging. I called it a volcano, potentially, like a anatomy of a volcano kind of structure, where apparently, as he was saying, is this on the right collides with the sandstone on the left and physically led to this structure looking like this, having layers that go up and wrap around, and then a layer below that as a pretty much like it's going straight and then it bends upward, going straight, bends upward, and it becomes more sharply like 90-degree angle bend as it approaches over here. And then even if we go down further and go to like follow this down to the center, like it has a center that then has paths going up here to basically where this volcano type structure is, and above it is this wedge. And if we look at this wedge again, specifically the way the wedge is, it kind of reminds me, like it starts also more sideways and kind of bends over. It kind of reminds me of what we're seeing happen here, where there's this structure that maybe is producing a wedge type volcano type structure above it that is pushing into like a layer that's more like sideways in terms of how it's interacting to then create like a bend. So maybe that's going on over here as well. The air volley trend area, I know it's dated radiometrically very old, where it shouldn't really be related to the process, but I imagine there's interactions to the process that are not accounted for. I've talked about this with like relationship to Mount Grenard, so I'm not sure, it's been a while, what to really make of the air volley trend still. I might have had something a little more concrete then. But so this is happening. I kind of deviated, I know. We were talking about something else entirely. But there's a structure like this that then is on this structure that is on this larger structure in the magnetic anomaly map here that kind of has like a spot. So if we look at this shape, it goes around, it goes around, up, down, generally over here, and then up this way, where it's then out at a like larger point, maybe even proton or neutron, proton, My God, the potentials. I would love to see the whole. It's missing so much data. Oops. Oops, daisy. We didn't. We don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing intentional in this world. Okay, so this is the mantle puncture hole. Currents are flowing out in all directions. They go this way. Sorry, let's get back to what I was talking about. I know that was probably a pretty long deviation. I don't know. Okay, let's just go. Current was flowing this way underneath Europe as the flows interacted and shaped. into the final product, pretty much. And they ended up going under North America and interacting with water that was there, because when the continents were together, it was an ocean. It was like the main body of ocean that I can find in northern Asia, Eurasia. Also had oceanic crust at the time before the Earth expanded. Like it behaved as the ocean. And then the Earth expanded and new oceanic crust. It wasn't basalt, but it behaved as the oceanic crust, which held the ocean waters before the Earth expanded. And then the Earth expanded, released more water. So it wasn't just what was in the oceans there, but as this undercurrent flowed underneath this pre-existing ocean, it physically heat exchanged and cooled this mantle flow to really create like solid structure over here. And probably over here in the Kursk magnetic anomaly area, which essentially led to current flowing along a more solid boundary over here, which started to cut through between the crust in the region of, firstly, the Mediterranean, and then into between North America and Africa, leading to a divide that the current went through and widened the space, because it was a large amount of current being focused over here, which then led to the Western Pacific forming physically underneath the crust here, underneath North America, adjacent and probably maybe not adjacent or under ever. Possibly as the Western Pacific grew to its size, it pushed North America and South America apart. So it never really was underneath South America, whereas North America was under or above the Western Pacific that was forming starting around Florida, and then it fanned out like so, interacting with other currents. And so like also Australia was above it. Importantly, Australia, again, if I didn't show this yet, I think I did. I'm pretty sure I already talked about this. Australia was over here, where the Western Pacific was flowing out underneath North America and then fanning out, so that this location in the Western Pacific was where Australia was. Which led to the production of this ammonite structure over here underneath Australia and Papua New Guinea. Okay, so that's going on kind of here. So maybe just for an idea, I won't try to do it perfect or anything. We can go over here. Oh my god, what kind of I'm looking forward to talking about. Let's go ahead and just do that. And then come over here. I won't zoom in any. How did I take this picture? Kind of off center. Okay, maybe that. Just higher. Low. Okay. And then do this. Turn it the other way. No, that was the right way, right? Yeah. And then maybe fade it a bit. Let's see. Maybe like here, having some relationship to like here. Where the Mariana Trench maybe has some relationship to down here. Somewhere there. I put it over there in the past. Although maybe both across different times. But like changing across time, so maybe I'll just get rid of a lot of this. To get like, I don't know why I zoomed in that much. To get like Australia mainly. Maybe make sure to get the whole circle. Okay. Looks like it fits pretty well. Oh my god. I almost see it moving away with the lines forming. But so this here was here initially. It was forming there and then moved away out over here. Was it? Or was it like this? It almost makes me want to put it more like this. Like more, it feels more realistic that it was like this. And then it turned like off of it, like there's this push going down and across. So it is emitting a jet stream out this way in the oceanic crust, but applying another pressure opposite over here, which initially is here. Does that make sense? Maybe it moved, like it went down over here to the next rung. Oh yeah. Went down over here. And then maybe to here, like right here. Basically between what was a conjoined landmass of Australia and Antarctica. And it got between them. Boop, boop. Let's see when they broke apart. When did Australia and Antarctica separate? 30 million? began to separate 85 million, accelerating to present rate. Completely separated 30 million years ago. Oh my god. So this thing moves down here. Let's go to like this, I guess. It starts here, like lashed in this way, at this location, emitting a jet stream off of this that's really going on the smaller radius globe. Initially, this way. They go along the boundary of Australia, Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, North Maluku, Sulawesi, Philippines, and then it's running into pressure at resistance of Borneo. So it's pushing into, along this path, Borneo, basically, which is over here. Here, but not Borneo itself, but adjacent, like along a path that it's pushing in this current, not just here, but forming an entire current that ends up going, pushing it this way into an arc that goes like this, wraps around, goes all the way over, connects to the Himalayas energetically, and forms this arc of flow that's propagating through the channels, though, that it's cutting a path this way, creating island arcs that have an average, I think, of like 45 million radiometric dating. Which is then a current, though, that is flowing in generally over here, hitting Alaska here. So really, that's why this image, I made this image, it's cutting apart what was once together across this path, where it severed Ontong Java Plateau, Manihiki Plateau, Hikurangi Plateau from one another, separated them into their current positions, and formed this earlier crust of the Western Pacific, but then formed an arc, which I didn't actually, this doesn't, like, this arc right there. I was trying to like put the arc in, so if I just hide this one and put back in this one, like it was going through here and formed an arc that generally pushed a current, like there's a structure of current that was behaving this way that then generally pushed a current, I don't know which layer I can write on, so how about this? To the side. Oops. But specifically, like, starting in Washington through Alaska. In that area is this arc that is pushing material, accreting material into the area of Baja, BC. But the arc continues all the way over to the Indonesian archipelago. And a current flow is propagating this way. But it's not just like randomly there. It's not just like, oh, there's a current flow. There is, again, the Ontong Java Plateau, the Manihiki, which is generally over here at the time, and the Hikurangi Plateau. I guess this should be a P. that were all conjoined as one unit and separated by this structure here, which pushed apart. So the Ontong Java Plateau is basically off of Solomon Islands here. And then the Hikurangi Plateau is down here in this area. And then the Manihiki Plateau is here, which here's the Solomon Islands. So here is the Ontong Java Plateau in this area. And here is this jet stream down the center off of this structure, a current flow emitted out this way that then is pushing a current to the side and essentially reaching over to the boundary of the Ontong Java Plateau, and it even extends through to the center here. So it reaches all the way to pretty much to this path, but it is all the way over here as well, pushing against it. But then over here, current's going in the opposite direction, and over here is the Manihiki Plateau off on that side. So there's Ontong Java, Manihiki separated, which were once together by this current flow emitted out of this location, where down below it is another current flow flowing down here, which is then building, or not building, but moving this other segmented piece, meaning all of these three were really began here at this location. They were forming here, but they got moved apart to go over first up. They get segmented upward in these two halves and downward this half by dividing them down. So one went down, two went up, and then dividing the up to be one over here, one over there. And then between them all is this structure. And as it does that, it emits a jet stream of current because it's effectively happening over here. So if we look at maybe this one, like this location is really like right here. Let me find this. Let me find it exactly. This here starts at 150, 152, 32 over here. 32, 152. So it's really seemingly like right here in this area. So in that area was this structure that ended up over here. First it moved down over here, and then it moved up over this way. And how it did that was by a stream cutting through this way and backwards that then began to essentially cut this way, but in so doing it segmented off a piece of this plateau that was forming atop this, and a piece was lodged down against the New Zealand pretty much. So like this portion of land didn't get moved as far. It got kind of caught in the current. So it was kept on this side rather than like being shoved over this way, which then acted as a backstop to, as this current is flowing into it, like most directly, I guess, and even into New Zealand. through this way, just pushing against it, creating all this Zealandia as this is happening, which then didn't really cohesively form and is like a failed continent, creating it between the space, but at least the newer parts, I'm not sure if anything like is a piece of like from here or something. Maybe New Zealand itself is already a pre-existing piece, I'm not sure. But so here's that location, I believe is there, or maybe even down there, something, which is over generally here. So this current is pushing in on one leg over here, but that doesn't mean it's only pushing on this one leg down here of the like angel structure. The other leg is also pushing, and that leg is pushing into South America over here, like this way, pushing into it, making all these like points of contact along the shore, or not the shore, the coastline inside of South America, applying a pressure, physically pushing to then move it over apart from Australia and segment the two. So they were actually broken into two separate continents. But this leg structure applying pressure that way, where this other current is going northward. Some of it is dividing sideways and then going up, so these lines continue up in these parallel paths off of the center one that especially run into these dots, so like areas of relevance that I have interpreted to be related to like something going on with the Yucatan Peninsula area and how it ended up breaking apart exactly, some detail of the process, like a breaking bond or something, several. But then up over here, it was pushing beyond the same current. This path points right at this location, which is the mid-Pacific Mountains, and specifically points at the nose of this dragon structure. And that structure was forming down here along the southern margin of the Rencha, that then was forming underneath the crust, though, to become the mid-Pacific Mountains underneath the crust, and before it slid out. So the Western Pacific was forming with current flows like going underneath North America and Australia again. And this current segmented the plateaus, came from this location. But if what I was talking about in the video was that there's some relationship between the crust over here in the East Marine Basin and some of these islands in this area, and this here points at that structure. And it goes over to where this is, where this basin is, that's younger in age, surrounded by older age crust. So it gave me the impression of like a current flow coming out of this thing, running into resistance, like maybe over like somewhere along over here, where it's running into resistance, but then it's like getting further each time and almost like unscrewing the earth. Unscrewing the earth, which then causes this thing to move away in the process. as well as the Western Pacific to move away from the Western North America to then create a new ocean floor over here, a new like bond between the layers of Asia, North America, and Australia, South America, maybe even some type of bond of that nature. Also Antarctica, but like a bond though that's reforming so that it's not really forming underneath North America in the same way that it was. It certainly like still flowed underneath North America when this was forming, and probably pressed into it as this side was more pressed, like the material amassing was pressed into. So if we go back to Photoshop again, so I feel like this is breaking into pieces here. Let's say, let's maybe start a new one. Let's say this is, let's use something else. Okay, this is Ontong Java Nui, where Ontong Java Nui is Ontong Java Plateau plus Manihiki Plateau plus Hikarangi Plateau. And this is centered on this smaller structure that is, I don't even know if I have a name for it that I've called it. This thing, let's say focal point of energy, like the main focal point of energy. So let's just call it focal point. Focal point. Where currents are colliding from all directions, leading to pressures that lead to like this ammonite structure over here, all this stuff going on, and ultimately coming out over here as a focal point of energy, possibly being the focal point all along, and like starting over here and going out here, maybe going out here, and then getting lodged over here, and then going down here, and then going over here where suddenly like the resistance was gone. Like there was a lot of other overall pressures flowing into this location. Like generally speaking, the flows were colliding there. They weren't colliding at the boundary between Antarctica and Australia enough where then this current flow that's pushing this way, like this jet stream out the base, the flame out the base, the jet stream out the top, I guess. This flame is pushing into something. There's pressure here. A current is flowing, holding the pressure, and it's pushing into it, and there's this wall here that's forming. But it's not able to, like, break through, but it effectively, like, sends energy into this area to interact, where an ammonite then is formed. Like this current is flowing this way, maybe it pushes off a side current that goes over here, that gets into this structure, causes a like decay sequence, pretty much almost like an activation energy. It pushes it over. Current from here gets in, which then relieves the pressure over here maybe, so it like skips over here for some reason. Like it takes off applies a pressure, takes off around this resistance. Here, there's like container it's within, and it moves over to then run into like other resistances over here in this region, but effectively it breaks through and cuts across the segmenting of Australia and Antarctica, applying a current that way that then allows it to like take off pretty much. And first of all, it widens, so it goes more towards the center, and then it goes this way, pushing off against resistance and like moving out over here, so that the current that was going this way, or like out here, maybe when it, like this jet stream isn't really happening initially, and after all, like initially it's like this, initial conditions, let's say initial, and then stage 1 maybe, this FP starts to have like a current flow behind it, like a flame. It starts to have a flame, which then removes it from that thing it's within, that like container. Underneath Australia, so like Australia is generally like over above this. Let's just say Australia. Then generally like this. Australia. And let's just draw blue. Blue coming with it. Initially, out from under Australia, coming with it. But then it moves. I guess let's just do this. Let's just go fast through this though. It moves down to like a stage 2, where it's over here. Oops. FP, where it just moves down to like Tasmania. So these are the same position of Australia, then it moves to Tasmania. Still with this flame. Still with the flame. Which actually cuts through the boundary of Australia and Antarctica. Maybe even with like a little triangle segment. And when it does that though, it divides this. And then 3. Swings out like this way to be facing this way with a flame still behind it, applying a pressure like that. But here, all of that just pretty much repeated the same things, but all of that to get to the point that then now we've got a current flow that it's moving into, like it's moving more into this current directly, where it started more like on the side here, so it kind of swings over to the center of this current. Or maybe, like initially, it just swung over there and then it moved down relatively. Because these pieces are all kind of moving apart from one another. Can it move both down and up? Like up this way relative to Antarctica and Australia, but down this way relative to North America. So it runs into this undercurrent coming through at a certain boundary that's more related. Like if it's more related to this width is generally pointing at this ammonite. So it's really holding pressure on this ammonite, this general current. So as it moves up into it, it then applies some interaction, I guess. Also, at stage 3, importantly, then it carries like Ontong Java Plateau and Manihiki Plateau, but leaves behind Manihiki Plateau with New Zealand. New Zealand. Just kind of, I was trying to encompass the seamounts, like this structure over here too. And let's just say South America. And then also this ammonite structure, which we'll just draw like a spiral. So this current that's flowing generally this way runs into, or is ran into by this, which then, let's say canvas size 3,000 maybe. Okay. I guess I should have done it sideways. Yeah, it's maybe better to do it that way. Let's undo. Okay. It's probably better to add width. Let's just say that. Do the same thing for layer 1. X50. Okay. So then we got 3, where this thing's running into this current. Okay. So then 4. 4. It starts. I guess we can turn it now, just for visual sake, that we're gonna picture it now doing this. With a jet stream below it. Going out this way, as it is more presently observable. And then with this current going through it, where it's being divided, because it's like running into it. Which then is because there's a pressure against it. Like a continuing jet stream from this pressure, this current, pretty much this current running into and like forcing a current flow that way, coupled with the opening of the Mariana Trench, which then, like, let's just say Mariana Trench, there's a current flow generally going that way that's like going into the eye, almost opening the eye. That has a boundary due to the current itself. So like if we go over here, this current, so instead of the one going off of above the mantle puncture hole, there's one going in here that has instead a boundary over here. If we go to Mariana Trench and look at its corner here, and just follow back this way, and then through here, it's got a boundary generally there, and then here, going, I believe this way, through here maybe, it's, I'm not completely sure, no. Sometimes I gotta do it both ways. Try to connect the dots. There, maybe? That one's going off there. There's so many currents interacting. Generally, though, there's a current flow going across here into the Mariana Trench, into this area. Like, as the process of the eye opens over here. So there's a pressure over that way, and a pressure from this jet stream going into the space. So it's not just like continuing, it's actually going this way. But then there's this current that it runs into. So maybe I drew this too wide initially. Maybe I can do it more like this. Probably didn't need to do all that, but Mariana Trench, current, like centered, and then current going up, pushing this boundary though. Mind you, this more like more occurring like dot dot dot. So if we kind of dot 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 dupe into resistance and just opening this side, moving this side like that, rather where this one's kind of stationary, like it's not affected by this current flow. So it runs over here, but then it bends in the just sheer pressure, because it really is like, this is not in a low energy process. It takes a lot of energy to like open this thing going on, but that runs into the Mariana Trench current like directly though over here, which then bends it back into pressure of this. So maybe if I go more like this, like across, and then it runs into like a flow moving away. So it goes back this way because there's pressure over here as well that pushes against it, so it moves it back this way. And then this current continues dot 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 over here and extends it, like extending these to open the totality of this, but they're not just like going in straight lines, they're ultimately going in like a, they're ultimately going in a spiral, essentially, that has some kind of nucleus structure that like, I guess, begins like a seed and grows. I'm not sure if I'm like this way, I guess. Into like an eyeball, but then like threads at some point back to the, so maybe actually this is later, so maybe it goes more like forming like a small circle that ultimately gets chunked into pieces around it, kind of thing, like a ring. But then that gets chunked by a new formation that pushes out the boundaries, kind of thing, because this is younger than over here in these regions. So I'm thinking like these regions formed first in the opening of this process, but then internally this current flow reached here from over here though. And mind you, like this was happening probably here and like over time moved to over here, is how I'm kind of looking at it visually. It looks like that, like it began over here and ended over here, with, in terms of its position, like they were the same location kind of thing. Like that was, this was happening as as Ontong Java was moved over like here somewhere, Ontong Java, and then Manihiki Plateau was moved over there, or even as farther than that, really. Moved like over here, I think. So they were separated, and that separation occurred at like a location off of Ontong Java Plateau that then moved over to there. Most visible here, though, like it opened up here, essentially. It began to open up here, which then moved over to this location more recently where the opening up was happening. But like physically similar to how this system moved from over here to over here, like this opening formed a layer here, and then the opening moved over here and formed another layer, kind of thing. Something, I'm not sure. Pardon me. Opening maybe being an opening forming, like a focal point again, that's more fluid, that's just forming new things in the space. All the while applying pressure up here to create those against here. And then over here, this also has some interesting stuff going on up here, where there's like one wavelength here, and then another wavelength, where current is generally flowing across from the mantle puncture hole this to the east, though, traveling this way, going over here, wobbling, and I believe this location did a similar thing to how this thing did, where it was against Bighorn Mountain, literally. This was forming against Bighorn Mountain underneath the crust here, with a current flow coming from the mantle puncture hole location across into physically run into that location, like above Australia, I guess. Like Australia, like along this boundary, or maybe along this boundary, along like this boundary, I don't know, here maybe, like this way, maybe, I don't know. But it was forming the structure there, and then it moved over to this location. So like the center of Colorado Plateau is the same general size as this like weird shape in this structure, where it looks kind of like it should continue, but then it just has this really defined circle, semicircle structure. Very much was initially here, like forming a wedge, holding this boundary closed, forming here, but then it moved down to the Colorado Plateau, down like here, and then it moved out and slid in the currents. Had like a first wavelength, I guess, and then a second wavelength ended up taking more form, maybe. Even this one might actually go above and over, like a wedge. Like it was behaving like a wedge and using two wavelengths to like wedge it apart. So that's going on too, where these seamounts are forming in the process. And we've already talked about that kind of stuff in other details, but now putting it in a picture, I don't remember the details to know how, off the top of my head how like timing is like. So just thinking for a second. This points at the beginning of Shatsky Rise, which notably the mid-Pacific Mountains fit really well underneath this segment, but then suddenly they just kind of go over here without a backstop. Like, there's a backstop of pressure here. There's not a backstop of pressure on this left side. Yet they formed against pressure like the rest of the island chain or seamount chain. And it looks like that pressure was Shatsky Rise et al. Over here. That then was like connected though to over there. Oh, maybe it's connecting back. Like maybe it's not flowing to, but from. Kind of interpreted. There's a current going in all directions and going this way and this way, but like that's not really what currents do. Like if we look at air currents of the earth, like there's generally not that kind of thing happening. So it's possible that this location really, like, while it was the focal point, wasn't necessarily like where current was flowing out of as much as it being just the focal point from which current generally was interacting between the mantle and crust because of the vortex storm there that then led to, though, a current flowing this way that then continued across this way, just like continuously. But then came from over here, which was really coming from over here, flowing this way, running into Bighorn Mountain from up here, flowing down this way, running into Bighorn Mountain, boop, running into it here, and then bouncing off it, literally, like passing it and going at a lower angle, or bouncing off it and going up this way, and then going at this angle, where then it ran into other currents down here going up this way as a backstop. So like this area had current generally flowing this way, whereas over in this last segment, current was generally flowing this way from over on the other side. So there are like two directions of currents. Let's just say and there, whatever. So first current that was coming from underneath Europe that then went this way. but like generally had a pressure range over here and down here, I guess. So it floated between this region. Oops. And probably fanning out like this way to create like another region just past that with an arc shape. Along this boundary. But then having a third current. Let's go like that too. So maybe also another boundary here. That goes down to like there, like to the high point-ish. And then I don't know, maybe this one boundary down here, like somewhere like there, where the mid-Pacific Mountains are forming. So just basically the mid-Pacific Mountains there. With then, let's say, this other current, though, that's coming from up here. Along this boundary, literally. Running into here, Bighorn. And then filling this region. Along this path, pretty much, this boundary, to the end of the mid-Pacific Mountains, which was where Baja was, and then there, but creating an actual pressure here. That is Shatsky Rise, which is known as the Shatsky Rise conjugate, which I'm pretty sure was believed to come from somewhere around this area. Whereas I can't remember the other. Let me see. Let's just get seamounts, Pacific Ocean, image. Brr. Shatsky Rise. Hess Rise, that's it. Whereas so Shatsky Rise and Papanin Ridge and Hess Rise. So Hess Rise, meanwhile, was forming here, like this way. Maybe even having like connections through like that. But with like a boundary there and then another boundary there. Did I draw that? Maybe it's more like this with like a thinner portion over here. Was more maybe like this part, and then it started to move and form this part as like the backstop, Because it seems like at like a poor angle, like a wave here. Seems like there's a wave generally there. Possibly larger. I'm not sure if it would be this way or this way in terms of comparing it to which of the two waves across. But this current is flowing down this way, which then is running into this point and projecting perhaps. And yeah, projecting a current this way through what I've called like this magnetic field looking thing of Yellowstone or of Bighorn Mountain. So this ring structure, which has like a ammonite structure, has a almost like a path of exhaust from the structure that flows over here and then goes over this way and then connects to those seamounts there. They go right there. So it's almost like the ammonite structure here exhausted out this way, and it physically went along this path out here with the seamounts of Hess Rise. Hess Rise moved out there, while Shatsky Rise moved from like over across here, maybe here. They moved up and through or over. Something where it moved from this position to where it is. That I'm not sure I'm seeing it as easily as that one. Where it goes out of the ammonite structure. So maybe it also has an out of the ammonite structure type thing there. Where the Hess Rise is more like this way. Again, like this. More like this way. Which then goes out that way. Where this one goes out along this path. And physically a current flows off of this region over out of the general pressures of here to then go out over there, that then continues all the way across and returns back to over here, where then it flows through, maybe even segmenting, like similar to the Ontong Java plateau, Ontong Java Nui segmentation. Maybe it like had a path that way and then went through that way more or something through to the East African Rift area. Seems related though, like there's a current going the other way and I've misinterpreted it because it's hard to say which way it's going. If that's the case, is if it's going this way, running into resistance maybe and spiraling, or maybe interacting with the spiral here. That's like going the other way. So it applies a pressure against this current to kind of prevent it from going that way as much. Which then leads to the opening of the ocean. This current just like spews out in the space between. With some nuance, like wherever the fault lines are. Nazca line. Let's see. Eastern Pacific fault line. Need a bigger, like the Nazca line, or East Pacific rise. Comes out of Baja California region, which is that focal point. So it's coming down this way, comes out here, cuts Australia and South America apart, like participates in the segmentation, and then over here too, and separating Antarctica apart. So there's a current going down that way. That's probably part of this stuff. Like somewhere in here there should probably be like a current flowing in directly at this and directly at it and directly at it, but over time slipping to the side because of the motion of this thing. Which then leads to the segmentation of the Pacific Ocean into having this focal point over by Fiji, but then this divide line where this other current that was going down went to this side, and then everything on the other side of that current was like it basically behaved as a spreading center because there's a current coming down through the space, but dividing. Let's see, East Pacific, here we go, there's a better one. Going that way, continuing to basically where that, it even has a line that just points at it through here. At that structure. Shooting a jet stream behind it that way. And the other way, which is probably why there's this divide here. Like doing one leg here, off its back. But then that being more so when the continents were closer, like off of here to here without the gap between. But then it moved here relative to over underneath Australia, while the space between formed this big ammonite structure. That seems to spiral back to have a boundary over here of this big ammonite structure, where similar to what we were talking about way a long time ago, I should probably end this soon just because of how long it is, but where there's this like system off the side of this ammonite structure, maybe like a spiral center somewhere over here, maybe here, like the actual beginning location of some structure, maybe here, I don't know, spiraling, one of them, but generally spiraling out this way, having even like chambers spiraling out, going around, and then having like explosive events, almost like picking up steam here, like this crack, this, where the continents are ripping apart bigger and bigger, like explosiveness to it, like a small one, bigger one, bigger one, and then one so big that it's literally divided in half, like down here and then up here, and then the space between that doesn't really show the connection where as these do. These are connected more so. Ripping apart all that. In this spiraling out of current that then goes over here, but then reaches some outward spiral, I guess, that is like the final chamber that maybe even is like here in some way, like here with a lip. I was been working on my book. Maybe I'd play again, why not? I don't know if I can quick, there it is. Lip, maybe? Let's see if I can find lip. There it is. George Cuvier, who is considered the father of modern paleontology, wrote in his 1815 book Geology, translated from French, "The ammonites, so named because of the spiral shape of their shell, have even more partitions than the nautilites. These partitions are perforated towards the back by a siphuncle that traverses all the chambers, and whose arrangement varies according to the species. The opening of the last chamber is simple, and its lower edge is often adorned with a protruding lip. We distinguish the ammonites into several genera based on the arrangement of the partition and the shape of the shell." Ammonite, protruding lip, I'm not sure. Like an image of one. It's such a feature. I'm not sure if it gets wider at that exact point, and there's some tendency that he was documenting. Where there's like a crescendo. But maybe it like relates to the formation of the Himalayas in some way. Where there's like an actual chamber structure this way. Like multiple chambers, even like one here, down to here. One chamber. And like another chamber, and then another chamber, and then another chamber. That maybe goes down to over here too. Chamber of some sort maybe. That starts to wrap around this way. Go this way, chambers. And then gonna at some deflection point, maybe it'd be more this oriented, I don't know. Around to go into the center, maybe even chamber like here. Chamber, maybe in some spiraling way. Depending on where the center is exactly, but so omitting, I haven't even really looked at this. So doing this, applying a current that then goes between them this way, applies a pressure this way, while, mind you, I guess applying a counter pressure also this way. In the whole process of it all, applying that pressure as well as that pressure over like this way. Along this way though initially. And along generally this way initially. Which then is like coming from this location though. So kind of go that way and that way over time as this like moved to here, but left behind Ontong Java Plateau and segmented Manihiki and Ontong Java while pushing Hikarangi Plateau, and then all of this behaved as kind of like a, almost like that dude, I don't know, maybe you know what I'm talking about, it's kind of like something like that. They show it with like electrical currents a lot, but more like center down over and then up and around. So maybe like that. Really. But then maybe even is like that. But so that current over here, whether or not that's exactly how the current's taking shape into like a, basically a vortex, a toroidal shape is what I'm thinking. Or maybe even like, since it's going like that way, this way, and this way, there's a like this way thing and a this way thing that like leads to this way. The separation of these. And this way, ultimately, which is then the separation, or maybe this way generally in some weird way, like down there, like off of here though, that then leads to the separation that way between a new continent is being born even. Zealandia. Like this vortex is producing a new continent. Or trying to, while all this is happening. That then leads to a current flowing that way. Which then flows this way, but runs into resistance, applying a like flowing close along the boundary and just generally cutting, applying a pressure up into this region, possibly flowing largely that way, and like opening a gap. I can't draw on this, but maybe just real quick. like flowing up along this boundary that I drew terribly, but having like a triangle branch off cone kind of thing, like that is opening a space and then creating another like layer where it opens the space further, but then it's running into resistance over here, but it's still applying a pressure outward while like going along this boundary and starting to flow like that way, which then leads to like a wave flowing this way to this wave. Wow, it's even like directly across. Wow, literally going this way to over here. I mean, it's definitely a little arced off, but it's pretty good, well like at the same angle, where then current specifically goes mostly like there between the boundary of Borneo here and that current physically is like Borneo or Philippines. Let's say here's some, these ones, this here is over here, and then the Philippines are over here, and then Borneo is up that way, like here. So Borneo, Philippines, and then let's just call that Sulawesi. And they move though, so they move in this current flow to their current position by a current flowing this way, running into resistance and going outward, and going between the Philippines and Sulawesi, and then flowing basically in here to fill this space out and occupy it, while Sulawesi and North Maluku are physically moved to the side, and this gap is open with this wave that then also goes this way to have like a full structure here. Which maybe like the current flow opens up a pathway, like once it passes, as it pushes this wave further, like back here, this current is applying a pressure, like there's water here, pressure. There's pressure here, but there's a current flow going around this way. Should probably use a different color, but going generally this way, holding a pressure, but another current going this way that's filling a pressure here, as well as like across from Europe, that's just filling pressure until the front of this pressure passes it, and then suddenly it can spill down this pressure, relief pressure in this area, and like current can flow this way, maybe, which goes over there, but then fills this pressure and maybe just leads to a path that way more so over time, leading to these like straight paths this way until here, where this is like flowing out that way into other resistance, like pressures this way. But it does so rapidly where it starts flowing over here and then bends it out over that way. And then the Philippines, which are ripped away, are wedged between, but they get caught up in this current. So the Philippines are there. This current also goes this way behind the Philippines. So it runs in, basically it goes between the Philippines, probably at a more of a straight angle. It runs into resistance and divides and leads to like this dividing path off this way that wraps around. But it takes the Philippines and cuts it between the Philippines and Australia. But it's Borneo is over here, so it's still like, mind you, it was this way, like, and it turns it with the pressure because this current seemingly is flowing like into the Philippines here, in part, and turns it, which was I guess going into the Philippines there. Which was at one time, if we go over here, I guess so it flowed up this way, got between here, and went this way, behind the Philippines, and kind of segmented, and then segmented Borneo and Australia. This is not very well positioned. It's more like that way. But then it caught on Borneo. On the opposite side, closer to North America, and shifted it physically like a wave all the way over here. I don't know exactly which parts are like moved, like certainly this is, and probably a lot of Indonesian archipelago, maybe even this. I don't know about all like China pretty much. I don't know, or at least that portion and whatever else is there. Pardon me, guys. Tasi Taiwan, probably North Korea. I don't even know. I really need to stop, but that's just like, dude. Like, whoa. The current flowing this way, segmenting through here. So I guess because there's arcs here, it really went between a piece of Asia and broke off an arc. But the bulk of material was like flowing out this way. So like Borneo itself, like Borneo is out here, and a current is between it flowing like that way. But there's like a boundary. This is more like inward, so it gets folded out by this current, opening a pressure, and then it does it again. It repeats, continues through, folds it out while Borneo moves down this way. And then it goes through here, folds it out while Borneo continues. And then ultimately it positions Borneo down here, which like physically attaches like in a chemical bond. Like we were just drawing. I don't think I saved it. Where this spills out over this way. And all the stuff I was just saying, right? So it bonds and then it holds it in position as part of Asia, as Southeast Asia, and connects Australia through to Asia in this way. All while, like, creating the Baja BC stuff and all the intricacies in this area. Okay, I gotta stop. I gotta stop. That is like a huge combination of a lot of my research. Oh my god. Shoot. I know the evidence in ways that it seems to fit. Like, I certainly can't recall every piece of evidence to, like, compare, but it, like, I've done it more small scale where I looked at certain things and put them into the puzzle together, and, like, it seems like, based on that, it probably fits the evidence really well. With nuances, of, as usual. But dear God. Peace out, y'all. Thanks for watching.